They were doctors. They killed. They were scientists. They tortured. Their work was supposed to save lives. It destroyed thousands. September 1959, Tokyo, Japan. Shiro Ishii dies in his bed, throat cancer, surrounded by family, at peace. 20 years earlier, he commanded a death factory where 3,000 to 50,000 human beings were tortured to death in medical experiments. Living dissection, freezing to death, plague infection, gas testing, all documented, all filmed. He never stood trial, never saw a prison cell, protected by America, in exchange for his data. October 2018, Tokyo, Japan publishes a list for the first time. 3,607 names, members of Unit 731. 73 years after the war ended. Most died unpunished. Some became millionaires, founded pharmaceutical companies that exist today. This is the story of how doctors became executioners, how scientists became demons, and how nearly all escaped justice. The scale. Between 1936 and 1945, a secret Japanese military unit conducted medical experiments on living human subjects. The experiments included vivisection without anesthesia, deliberate infection with plague, cholera, anthrax, amputation and reattachment of limbs to opposite sides, freezing experiments on children as young as 3, testing flamethrowers and grenades on tied prisoners, mummification of living humans to measure water content, all meticulously documented, thousands of photographs, hours of film. The commander, Shiro Ishii, military doctor, microbiologist, graduate of Kyoto University. He died free, rich, comfortable. His deputy, Masaji Kitano, became a successful pharmaceutical executive, founded Japan's first commercial blood bank. The scientists who froze children alive published their findings in medical journals, won awards, taught at universities. Not one faced execution. Most served minimal sentences. Several never faced trial at all. August 1945, Soviet troops entered the Unit 731 compound in Pingfang, China. Found a slaughterhouse. Bodies dumped in rivers. Prisoners gassed with cyanide in their cells. Buildings burned. Evidence destroyed. But not all evidence. The Japanese were meticulous. They documented everything. Those documents went to America. In exchange, immunity from prosecution. The deal was simple: your data for your freedom. America wanted the biological warfare research, decades of human experimentation, results no ethical scientist could obtain. The price? Let the killers walk. This is that story. To understand Unit 731, you must understand the Japan that created it. 1926. Emperor Hirohito ascends to the throne. Age 25. Educated, cultured, a marine biologist by training. Within years, he'd preside over one of history's most brutal military regimes. The transformation wasn't sudden. It was systematic. 1931. The Mukden Incident. Japanese military stages a railway explosion in Mukden, China. Blames Chinese forces. Uses it as pretext for invasion. Within months, Japan controls Manchuria, territory larger than France and Germany combined. 1932. The Puppet State. Japan establishes Manchukuo, an independent state completely controlled by Tokyo, a testing ground for occupation policies, and something else, a testing ground for weapons. 1932. The Assassination. Prime Minister Tsuyoshi Inukai attempts to restrain military expansion, wants peaceful relations with China, economic development over conquest. May 15, 1932. Naval officers and Army cadets storm his residence, murder him. The assassins weren't criminals, they were heroes. The petition. Emperor Hirohito receives a petition demanding clemency for the assassins. Signatures, 350,000, all signed in blood. Then a package arrives. Contents, 11 severed fingers. From young men across Japan. Message, execute us instead of these worthy patriots. The assassins weren't trying to overthrow the emperor. They murdered Inukai because they believed he was leading Japan astray. The military, they argued, knew best. The verdict, all 11 convicted. Sentences, minimal, all released within years. Several returned to politics. The message was clear. Military expansion had popular support. The government wouldn't resist. From this moment, the military controlled Japan's political agenda completely. 1933, League of Nations. Japan withdraws from the League of Nations, rejects international oversight, declares Manchuria Japanese territory. The League condemns, does nothing. Hitler watched, Mussolini watched. Both learned territorial aggression goes unpunished. The ideology. Japan never published racial superiority documents like Nazi Germany's Ahnenerbe research. But the propaganda was explicit. Japanese were inherently superior to other Asians. Koreans, Chinese, Filipinos, racially inferior. Naturally suited for subjugation. This wasn't fringe belief. It was mainstream ideology. Taught in schools, preached from pulpits, printed in newspapers. The rivalry. Within the military, Army versus Navy. 1932, Army takes Manchuria. 1932, Navy attacks Shanghai, fails but tries. Both branches wanted credit for expanding the empire. Both wanted to demonstrate superior effectiveness. This competition would fuel increasingly brutal tactics. In this atmosphere, militarism, racial supremacy, institutional competition, a secret project begins. Name, Project Togo. Location, Zhangma Fortress, Manchuria. Commander, military doctor Shiro Ishii. Purpose, develop biological weapons through human experimentation. Emperor Hirohito personally signed authorization. 4 months to build infrastructure. Then the killing begins. Who was Shiro Ishii? Understanding the man is essential to understanding the horror he created. Early life. Born near Kyoto, 1892, son of a major landowner, one of the province's wealthiest men. Father also produced and sold sake, Japan's national drink. Privileged upbringing, private education, no hardship, no trauma to explain what came later. Education. School. Teachers remember photographic memory. Brilliant student, always top of his class. 1916, Kyoto University, Medical School. 1920, graduates, marries the university president's daughter. Convenient connection, access to academic elite. 1921, conscripted into Imperial Army, becomes military doctor. 1922, assigned to 1st Army Hospital plus Army Medical School in Tokyo. Begins studying bacteriology, growing cultures, conducting experiments. The night experiments. Professors remember, antisocial, harsh, uncommunicative. He conducted experiments at night, alone. University protocol, clean all glassware before leaving, store properly. Ishii ignored this, worked through the night, left equipment filthy. Morning. Students arrived to dirty beakers covered in bacterial cultures. Crazy Shiro came again. Now we have to clean his mess. Not amusing. A preview. 1925. Promotion. Military doctor, 2nd class. Moving up the hierarchy. Becoming part of Japan's elite. 1928 to 1930. The turning point. Sent to Europe on research tour. Official purpose, study bacteriology and chemical weapons. What he studied, bacterial warfare potential, chemical weapons, German World War I gas attacks, European defensive measures. The critical discovery. Europe was terrified of biological weapons. Historical trauma, Black Death killed 1/3 of Europe's population. still feared. Recent trauma, Spanish flu, 1918 to 1920, killed 50 million globally. Result: biological weapons research was absolute taboo. No European nation developed it. Ishii realized this fear was a weapon itself. Develop bioweapons and Europe would collapse in terror. 1930, The Return. Arrives back in Japan with a plan. Needs two things: funding authorization for human experimentation. Finds two men equally obsessed with military supremacy. Araki Sadao, Minister of War, chief theorist of right-wing militarism, absolute believer in Japanese racial superiority. Shikaiwa Kujumi, chief medical officer, Imperial Army, father of Japanese chemical weapons. Since 1918, tried developing chemical warfare capabilities, lacked scientific genius to implement. The pitch. Ishii to both men. Gentlemen, Europe obsesses over superweapons, Zeppelins, German rockets, but the white apes fear biological weapons most. We will build a biological bomb, deploy it, demonstrate its power. They will fall like ripe persimmons into our hands. Requirements: funding, imperial authorization, human test subjects. We could experiment on sheep and monkeys, but we're fighting humans. Therefore, experiments must be conducted on humans. To the Emperor. Araki and Shikaiwa approach Emperor Hirohito. Your Majesty, we will create a superweapon. A talented scientist will develop biological warfare capabilities. Requirements: money, human experimentation. Hirohito signed the authorization. Secret Project Togo established. 1932. The man who would torture thousands to death was a doctor, trained to heal. The experiments were framed as medical research, seeking vaccines, studying disease resistance. The reality: sadism disguised as science, curiosity without conscience. One colleague later testified, most experiments had no scientific value. They were asking, what happens if we do this to a human? Like cruel children breaking toys. Shiro Ishii was that cruel child, but with unlimited power, resources, and victims. What happened at the first facility? 1932 to 1936. Jangma Fortress. Location: remote area of Manchuria, Japanese-occupied Chinese territory. Purpose: develop biological weapons, test on human subjects. Process: capture Chinese, Koreans, Mongolians from surrounding areas. Infect with diseases: typhus, anthrax, plague. Observe progression under different conditions. Document: 35 days survival near infection source, 47 days farther away, 12 days close proximity. All meticulously recorded: temperature variations, infection vectors, mortality rates. The scale: exact victim count unknown. Project was secret. Estimates: hundreds killed in experiments during this period. 1934, The Escape. Several Chinese prisoners escape, begin telling what they witnessed inside. Their fate unknown, possibly recaptured, possibly reach safety. But word was spreading. 1935, The Explosion. Major explosion at Jangma facility. Witnesses believe sabotage, likely Chinese resistance. Result: secret compromised, facility damaged. Decision: build bigger, build better, build permanent. 1936, Unit 731 officially established. Cover name: Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department of the Kwantung Army. Official mission: ensure clean water for troops, disease prevention, public health. Actual mission: industrial-scale biological weapons development through human experimentation. New location: Pingfang, south of Harbin. Construction: 300 peasant homes demolished, 3-meter, 10-foot, brick walls erected. Barracks, cells, laboratories constructed. Staff: 3,000 personnel. Simultaneously, network of related units established. Unit 100, biological weapons for horses, cavalry still important. Unit 516, chemical weapons. Unit 1644, 8604, various locations. Unit 9420, Singapore, after Japanese conquest. The death factory was now permanent, industrial, systematic, and the killing accelerated dramatically. How was the facility organized? Unit 731 divisions. Division 1, research viruses, insects, plague-carrying fleas, frostbite, chemical gases, plague, anthrax, cholera, typhus, tuberculosis, blood serum, parasites, X-ray radiation, burns. Division 2, weapons development, bomb construction, ceramic bombs to deliver biological agents, delivery mechanisms, aerial dispersal systems. Division 3, mass production, industrial-scale bacteria cultivation, vaccine development, cover story, actually, weaponized pathogen production. Division 4, disposal, log disposal control. Logs equals code word for human subjects. Project officially named Maruta, logs, responsible for destroying evidence. Security, Kempeitai Unit 731, guarded by Kempeitai, military police of Imperial Japanese Army. Functions, in Japan, military law enforcement. In occupied territories, brutal suppression, torture, execution, equivalent to Nazi SS. Reputation, utterly ruthless, feared throughout Asia. Before Unit 731, their first assignment, comfort stations. The comfort stations. Japanese military reports, high rates of rape by soldiers in occupied China. Solution, establish military brothels. Official story, voluntary prostitution. Reality, 50,000 to 300,000 women forced into sexual slavery. Chinese, Korean, Filipino women kidnapped. Medical examinations. Forced to service 20 to 30 soldiers daily. If infected with VD, given drugs causing permanent infertility. This atrocity still causes diplomatic tensions. Memorials in Korea, Hong Kong, Philippines. Kempeitai managed these stations, raped women themselves, had unlimited authority. They brought the same brutality to Unit 731. The victims arrived in unmarked black vehicles. No windows, no markings. Inside the compound, immediate medical examination, blood tests, health assessment, fed adequately, need healthy subjects for meaningful data, then used as raw material for experiments, average survival, 2 months, 0 prisoners ever released, all killed. Kiyoshi Kawashima, Unit 731 staff member, all prisoners died. In Unit 731's entire existence, not one prisoner left alive. Annually, approximately 600 died from experiments. 1940 to 1945, minimum 3,000 killed through deliberate bacterial infection. How many died before 1940? Unknown. What exactly did they do? The 3 objectives. Japan fought on multiple fronts. Each required different research. China, Southeast Asia. How humans respond to dehydration, tropical diseases. Soviet Union. How humans respond to extreme cold, frostbite. United States. Biological weapons for potential Pacific warfare. All required human experimentation. The Japanese were meticulous. Like the Nazis, they documented everything. Notebooks, journals, photographs, film footage. Why? They believed they were conducting legitimate scientific research, seeking knowledge that would save Japanese soldiers' lives. Nakagawa Yonezo, Kyoto University researcher, Unit 731 member. Most experiments had no scientific purpose. People behave like cruel children who break toys or torture animals. These children grew up and gained absolute power over other humans. Many experiments driven by curiosity. What happens if we do this to a human? The experiments. Vivisection. Live dissection without anesthesia. Organs removed while subject conscious. Demonstrated to medical officers. Ishii personally conducted vivisection demonstration in Tokyo Conference Hall. Audience. Top military leadership. Showed them living organs. Purpose claimed, trained surgeons for battlefield medicine. Reality. Victims died slowly, in agony, for demonstration purposes. Amputation. Limbs removed. Attempts to reattach to opposite sides, right arm to left side, left to right, creating homunculi. Gangrenous infection deliberately induced. Observed progression. Documented when infection became fatal. Frostbite experiments. Primary researcher Hisato Yoshimura, nicknamed the Devil Scientist. Method. Subjects exposed to temperatures of -40 degrees Celsius to -50 degrees Celsius, -40 degrees Fahrenheit to -58 degrees Fahrenheit, including children as young as 3 years old. Yoshimura developed Resistance to Cold Index, detailed tables showing human survival rates at various temperatures. He published this research in the 1950s. Stated openly, during the war, experiments included children. Never prosecuted. Burns. How much thermal damage can humans survive? Subjects deliberately burned. Progression documented. Healing rates measured. Survival thresholds established. Plague experiments. Chinese and Korean prisoners tied to wooden posts in outdoor fields. Ceramic bombs filled with plague-carrying fleas detonated overhead. Distances measured. Infection rates calculated by proximity. Survival times recorded. Purpose. Determine effective dispersal range for biological bombs. Grenades and flamethrowers. Live humans used as targets. Tested various distances and angles. Documented wound patterns, survival rates, treatment effectiveness. Mummification. The human body is 78% water. How was this figure determined? Unit 731. Living humans placed in rooms with industrial heaters and fans. Slowly dehydrated over days. Bodies weighed throughout process. Water loss measured precisely. Victims conscious during early stages. Documented their suffering. Pressure chambers. Low pressure testing. How much can humans withstand? Subjects placed in chambers. Pressure lowered. Continued until eyeballs exploded from eye sockets. All filmed. Electricity. How much electrical current can humans survive? At what amperage does death occur? How long can shock be sustained? Victims subjected to increasing voltages. Fatal thresholds documented. Radiation. X-ray exposure. Lethal doses administered. Documented effects of radiation poisoning. Survival times. Organ damage. Blood transfusion. Animal blood injected into humans. Horse blood. Dog blood. Observed reactions. Documented time to death. Venereal disease. Deliberate infection with syphilis, gonorrhea, both to study disease progression and to test treatments. Chemical weapons. Trenches and bunkers constructed. Prisoners placed inside. Chemical weapons dispersed. Variables tested. Gas concentration. Wind conditions. Protective value of trenches versus bunkers versus open ground. All documented. Subject in trench, less affected. Subject in bunker, even less affected. Subject on elevated ground, died immediately. Russians. Small number of Soviet citizens documented as prisoners, including one 35-year-old woman with her 3-year-old child, 2 Red Army soldiers, all killed in experiments. These weren't rogues, weren't madmen acting alone. The facility was visited by Prince Mikasa, Emperor's brother, Hideki Tojo, future Prime Minister, multiple generals and admirals. They saw everything. Barracks, laboratories, bodies preserved in formaldehyde. They approved. promoted Ishii. By 1942, Ishii became chief medical officer of entire imperial army, all military medicine under his command. Masaji Kitano appointed new Unit 731 commander. Both men died wealthy, free, honored. How many died? Estimates vary wildly. 3,000 to 10,000 to 20,000 to 50,000. Why uncertainty? Records destroyed, archives burned. What we know. Kawashima Kiyoshi, Unit 731 staff. Average prisoner survival, 2 months. Not one prisoner ever left alive. 1940 to 1945, minimum 3,000 killed through bacterial infection alone. Deaths before 1940, unknown. This figure excludes deaths from other experiments: frostbite, burns, vivisection, chemical weapons. Conservative estimate, 3,000 to 10,000 killed in direct experimentation. Broader context. Unit 731 wasn't contained to laboratory. They deployed biological weapons in combat. 1941, plague attack on China. Plague-carrying fleas dispersed over Chinese-controlled territory. Death toll estimates, 700 to 7,000 dead, 200,000 infected. Territory controlled by Chiang Kai-shek, nationalist Chinese government. Records sent to Americans. President Roosevelt knew by 1941. Kept secret until 1943. Why the delay? Intelligence indicated Japan planning Operation Cherry Blossoms at night, biological attack on California using balloon bombs and kamikaze pilots. Roosevelt revealed threat in 1943 as high-level terrorism warning. 1939, attack on Soviet territory. During Khalkhin-Gol border clashes, Japanese operatives transported typhus cultures to Soviet border. Disguised as civilian passengers on regular train, dumped cultures into Argun River. Typhus outbreak followed on Soviet territory. Soviet military doctors later connected outbreak to deliberate infection. The plague strain. Unit 731 developed plague strain 60 times more lethal than natural plague. 60 times. The scale. Testimony from survivors. The amount of biological weapons produced, if dispersed under ideal conditions, could infect Earth's entire population. Industrial production, factory scale, assembly line killing. The weapons. Ceramic bombs developed specifically for biological agent delivery, tested on prisoners, results documented. Ishii's obsession. Plague. His dream. Deploy plague across all enemy territories via ceramic bombs or balloon dispersal. One researcher called him the plague doctor, the plague devil himself. Did anyone in power know? Everyone in power knew. Everyone approved. Emperor Hirohito personally signed authorization establishing Unit 731, later claimed ignorance. Evidence contradicts this. Imperial authorization required for human experimentation. Imperial family members visited facilities. Reports went directly to Imperial headquarters. Prince Mikasa, Emperor's brother, visited Unit 731, saw everything, signed financial authorizations for entire network of death camps, lived until 2016, age 101, never prosecuted. Prince Takeda, visited facilities, responsible for funding, lived until 1992, never prosecuted. Prince Higashi Kuni, personally ordered chemical weapons use during Nanking Massacre, lived until 1990, never prosecuted. Hideki Tojo, visited Unit 731, later became Prime Minister, sentenced to death at Tokyo trial for other war crimes. Executed 1948, never charged for Unit 731 involvement. Araki Sadao, Ishii's first patron, Minister of War, later Minister of Education, spreading militarist ideology in schools. Tokyo trial, convicted, sentenced. Released 1956, returned to public life. Shikaiwa Koizumi, Ishii's second patron, chief medical officer, father of Japanese chemical weapons. Later, Minister of Health. 1945, committed seppuku, ritual suicide, before trial. Died honored. Unit 731 wasn't rogue operation, wasn't hidden from leadership. It was official policy, supported at highest levels, funded by imperial budget. Success brought promotion. Ishii rose from project commander to chief medical officer of entire army. The enterprise was official, sanctioned, celebrated. What happened when the war ended? May 1945, Germany surrenders. August 6, 1945, Hiroshima. August 9, 1945, Nagasaki. Soviet Union invades Manchuria simultaneously. Night of August 10 to 11, 1945. Unit 731 receives evacuation order. Immediate. Emergency. All personnel evacuated to Japanese mainland overnight, but first, destroy evidence. The massacre. All remaining prisoners executed. Methods: cyanide gas pumped into cells, mass shooting, bodies dumped in rivers, buildings burned, laboratory equipment destroyed. Soviet arrival: Red Army enters Pingfang compound, finds slaughterhouse, bodies, ash, fragments of equipment, partial records. Witnesses report 2 Soviet soldiers attempted escape during the massacre. 1 feigned death. When guard checked, they overpowered him. Attempted to free other prisoners, they were shot. Prisoners too weak to run. 3-meter walls impossible to climb. All killed. The 35-year-old Russian woman and her 3-year-old child died in gas chamber experiment. The trials. 2 major war crimes trials. Nuremberg, Germany, you know this one. Tokyo trial, Japan, less known. Tokyo trial, 29 defendants, 7 death sentences. Others, various prison terms, 25 years, 30, 45, life. By 1956, all released, all returned to society. But Unit 731, not mentioned. The silence. At Tokyo trial, nobody knew about Unit 731. Chiang Kai-shek had sent Roosevelt documents in 1941. Americans knew, but information not publicized. Why? The deal. General Douglas MacArthur commanded Allied occupation of Japan, made key decisions. Decision 1. Emperor Hirohito. MacArthur removed Emperor from war crimes prosecution. Justification. We need Japan in our sphere, need person who can consolidate nation while showing repentance. Hirohito wasn't military man, he's emperor, different. Arguable position, perhaps defensible. Decision 2. Unit 731. Americans interrogated Ishii. He talked. Yes, conducted inhumane experiments, but seeking typhus vaccine, studying x-rays, developed anthrax vaccine, major advances in pain threshold research and cold resistance. I'll give you everything, all data, all research, decades of results no ethical scientist could obtain. The bargain. United States wanted the data. Information gained from thousands of victims. Results impossible to replicate ethically. Cost of obtaining data? Let the killers walk free. Ishii, granted immunity, not tried. Kitano, granted immunity, not tried. All key researchers, protected from prosecution, documents transferred to United States. The doctors who tortured thousands became university professors, pharmaceutical executives, medical researchers, award winners. Yoshimura, frostbite experiments on children, published research in academic journals, never mentioned source of data. Kitano, founded Green Cross Corporation, major pharmaceutical company, established Japan's first commercial blood bank. All knowledge from Unit 731. Green Cross later merged with Yoshitomi. Massive scandal. HIV-contaminated blood products. Company eventually absorbed by Mitsubishi Pharmaceuticals. The data never disappeared. The knowledge was used. The companies still exist. Chinese and Soviet protests. 1949. Soviet Union conducted Khabarovsk trial. Japanese war criminals prosecuted for Unit 731 activities. Testimony revealed full scope. Soviets requested Ishii's extradition from United States to try him for crimes against Soviet citizens. Request denied. Ishii disappeared. Shiro Ishii. After immunity granted, evidence of visits to United States. Lectures at University of Maryland, unconfirmed but reported by family. 1950. Mao Zedong wrote Stalin claiming Ishii and Kitano present in South Korea with U.S. forces, allegedly deploying biological weapons against Chinese troops during Korean War. Document exists, accuracy disputed. 1959. Ishii died, throat cancer, at home, surrounded by family. His daughter later described him as kind man, warm, before death converted to Catholicism. Funeral organized by Kitano, well-attended, respectable. Masaji Kitano founded Green Cross Corporation, became wealthy pharmaceutical executive, medical innovations, blood banking, built empire on Unit 731 research, died successful, honored, free. The others, virtually all Unit 731 members escaped prosecution. Those tried at Khabarovsk, released by 1956, returned to Japan, lived normal lives. None wrote critically of Soviet imprisonment. Interesting note. One hanged himself in bathhouse before repatriation. Most lived into the 1970s to 1980s. Died at home, natural causes. Japan's silence. For decades, Japan denied Unit 731's existence, denied comfort stations, denied massacres, denied biological weapons. Pressure from China, Korea, Philippines, forced acknowledgement of comfort stations, reparations paid, but Unit 731? Denial continued. October 2018, Japan finally declassified list. 3,607 names. Unit 731 members. 73 years after war's end. Why? Aging survivors. Changing political climate. International pressure. Most named individuals already dead. The questions. Why no justice? Cold War. By 1950, U.S. and Soviet Union enemies. Japan needed as ally. Industrial capacity essential. Prosecuting every collaborator with Imperial Japan would cripple Japanese economy. Pragmatism over justice. The data. American Biological Weapons Program wanted Unit 731 research. Decades of human experimentation. Impossible to replicate ethically. Trade. Data for immunity. The cover-up. Neither United States nor Japan wanted publicity. Both benefited from silence. Documents classified, witnesses intimidated, evidence suppressed. The legacy. The research didn't disappear. It was used. U.S. Biological Weapons Program, pharmaceutical companies, medical textbooks, uncredited, cold resistance research, burn treatment protocols, frostbite treatment. Every medical advance built on Unit 731 data came at cost of torture. The philosophical question, can knowledge gained through evil means be used for good? If burn treatment saves lives today, but was developed by burning prisoners alive, is that knowledge tainted forever? No easy answer, but we must acknowledge the source. The modern parallel. Today, ethical review boards prevent human experimentation without consent. But what about data already obtained? Unit 731, Nazi hypothermia experiments, CIAMK Ultra. We used it, we still use it. The victims died in agony. Their suffering produced knowledge. That knowledge saves lives today. How do we reconcile this? The uncomfortable truth. The doctors who became demons weren't madmen. They were educated, cultured, products of elite universities. They believed they served their country, conducted research for military advantage. They documented everything because they thought future generations would view them as pioneers. Medical heroes who made hard choices. They were wrong. They were monsters. But they died free, comfortable, some wealthy, some honored. Shiro Ishii married the university president's daughter, raised family, enjoyed successful career. Before death, converted to Catholicism, sought redemption. Did he find it? His daughter believed so. The 3,000 to 50,000 people he tortured to death might disagree. But they're not here to give opinion. They died screaming in laboratories, bodies dumped in rivers, evidence burned. He died in bed, age 67, family at his side. Justice isn't inevitable. Evil isn't always punished. The guilty don't always face consequences. Sometimes monsters live long lives, raise families, die peacefully. Sometimes their victims disappear into unmarked graves, their suffering documented only in classified files. Sometimes the data matters more than the dead. That's the truth about Unit 731. Not inspiring, not redemptive, just true. The doctors became demons. The demons died free, and we're still using their research. That's the legacy we live with.